Hello, 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 everybody, and thank you for joining me this wonderful Tuesday. I'm your host, Louise H. Reed, with listeners in over 145 countries and millions of iTunes and ongoing podcasts each month. I'm here every Tuesday at this time to look into the lives of everyday people doing extraordinary things. People who take brave, bold action in pursuit of their dreams and goals, and are here to share their journey to help you do the same in yours. Before we start, I'd like to thank you for joining me each week and for providing me the opportunity to live out my dream and to share and grow with you. There is nothing more valuable than time, so I'm honored you're sharing yours with me. And to show my gratitude, I have recently started a monthly giveaway. Anyone who likes or comments on a podcast episode, likes or comments on the live Facebook feed will be entered into a monthly draw for a prize. So comment and like away. Now, on to today's guest. Today, I have with us Lydia di Francesco. And Lydia is a wellness expert, business owner, published writer, and speaker. She helps busy professionals get and stay fit and healthy so they can become high achievers in their professional lives and thrive in their personal lives. She is the founder and CEO of Fit and Healthy 365. As a wellness coach and certified personal trainer, Lydia educates clients and the public that healthy living can be simple. Doesn't that sound good? When you have a mindset with a long-term approach to wellness. Lydia makes regular appearances as a fitness expert on CTV Ottawa Morning Live and Rogers Daytime Ottawa. That's our hometown here in Canada. She is also a published author in national and local publications. Lydia, I'd love to welcome you to today's show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be on the show and can't wait to get into it.
Me too. We know, my listeners know we have a juicy hour to explore all sorts, and I can't wait to jump on in. I think I may have mentioned to you, my listeners all know this is my favorite hour of the week, and so I'm thrilled to be sharing this time with you. So I'm sure that when we had little Lydia on this world, little girl Lydia, your dream wasn't to be a wellness expert.
No, actually it wasn't.
So tell us a little bit about what you wanted to be and how things got to this point. Take us on a little bit of a journey through that.
Okay, sure. So yeah, little Lydia actually wanted to be a lawyer. And I was pursuing that slightly. And then I found out there was going to be 4 more years of education after 4 years of undergrad. And I just was like, no, thanks. That's not any more education. And anyway, but no, I actually came to Ottawa partly because of the landscape, the political climate here. I was really into politics and that sort of thing. And it looked really pretty when I saw it in the booklet, they give you to look at things. And I started in political science, so totally different from fitness. And I did international studies and modern languages. And then after I graduated, I did some stuff and then got hired on at the Prime Minister's office here in Canada. So I worked for the Prime Minister's office for 2 years, which was amazing. Such an opportunity of a lifetime. Like there's not very many people in this world that get that experience.
No.
Don't take it for granted. I was in, the room with the Prime Minister and the cabinet ministers every day, really seeing how government works, how things function on the inside. And it was probably the hardest that I'll ever have to work in my life. in terms of intensity and duration, like I was working 13-hour days nonstop. Like now as an entrepreneur, I have long days, but it's not always nonstop like that and such high pressure. So, but it was really, really fun. The people are so great to work with. And even, 10 years later, I'm still in touch with a lot of the people that I worked with. And there's a camaraderie that happens there. That's really cool. And then I did a few different things after that. I did some consulting in communications. And then I had wanted to go back to get some further education in business. And I thought an MBA would be a great way to do that. So I ended up doing an MBA program full-time at the University of Ottawa. And so completed that. and then got into the marketing world. So I worked in an agency for a little while, and it was during that time, throughout basically most of that period of working time, I was physically active, playing volleyball, which I still do, going to the gym, and I was doing some group classes at our local gym here. And one day, it was literally out of the blue. So talk about like your show is, I know, is all about taking bold action.
Yeah.
And example of how I do that fairly regularly in my life. But one day I just showed up at the gym. There was a poster on the wall, and it was like tryouts to teach body pump, which is the class that I was doing. And I thought, you know what? Why not? The worst case was that it would just be a good workout. Best case would be that I would get hired. I had thought that I would do really well. I was very rhythmic and had a good sense of leadership and that sort of thing. So anyway, long story short, I got the job and loved it, and continued on doing that part-time with a few other classes as well for about 2 years. And then I started really enjoying the conversations that I was having one-on-one in the change rooms. So that led me to pursue certification in personal training, because I thought, the group stuff is great and I love it. I love being in front of crowds and teaching people and motivating people. But in group classes, not a lot of people actually change. There's not a lot of transformation. They kind of look the same physically over time. They're not really improving. They're not getting stronger. And for me, I really wanted to make an impact on an individual person's life.
Yeah.
And I felt that personal training was going to be the way to do that, because you had that more one-on-one connection. So I got certified, and I ended up getting hired with a company, and I was doing marketing and personal training, which is what I wanted to be doing. I didn't want to give up the marketing side of things. And then a year and a half into that, having some conversations with a friend of mine who had her own business, kind of talking through some things. She was encouraging me to go out on my own. And basically, I kind of crunched the numbers and saw that it was something that was very doable. Obviously risky, but fairly low risk in the grand scheme of starting out a business.
Kind of life, yeah.
Yeah. And then so I basically just decided to go for it. So I gave my notice with the company, and then ventured out on my own into the brave, bold world of entrepreneurship. So,
and isn't it that? So
yeah.
So many things I've learned about you. So for the listeners, you and I met, I think it was at a conference. Was that when we actually met for the first time? At a conference about a year ago, I think.
Yeah,
and
it was in the United Way conference. Yeah,
the United Way conference, and we've chatted and met for coffee a few times. And definitely, there's a lot of similar interests. And I've learned some really cool things about you, even so far, that I want to dive into.
Sure.
So first of all, thank you for sharing all of that. Like, I love people's stories are fascinating. We all go through, if we're fortunate enough to remain on this work, in this world, we all go through the same ages. We start at 1 and we go to 2. Yep. It's that chronological age. We all go through it. We don't miss a year.
Right.
And yet everyone's experiences are completely different. And it's so cool and fascinating. And I think there's so much to be learned when we share our stories, and we share really openly and honestly about the kick-ass awesome stuff, but just as much of the stuff that was kind of shitty and was hard.
Yeah.
And sharing it for the purpose of connecting with others, so people don't feel alone during those crappy times, and how you got out of it, right? So I kind of want to go and explore a lot of that. First of all, I wanted to say body pump. So I have in my application in to become a body pump instructor right now.
Oh, you'll love it.
Yeah.
I do. Honestly, I miss body pump. It's really fun. It's a great
fun. So that was kind of cool. And I loved how you tied in, you taking that, something that was seemingly, it's pretty inconspicuous. You could have easily just walked on past. And yet it changed the trajectory of your life.
Yes. And it was also, it was just like the poster was there a few days before. So it was it wasn't like I had a lot of time to ponder about it. It was just the poster was there, I think, on like a Wednesday, and then the tryouts were Friday. But I think it it really demonstrates one of the practices, I guess you could call it, that I do in my life, which is I always, when I have a decision to make about something, I pretty much always ask myself, what's the worst thing that could happen?
Yeah.
And generally speaking, the worst thing is usually not that bad. And then there's always even a workaround. So in that body pump case, the worst thing that could happen was that I didn't get it. And because the tryout was a workout, basically, and an interview. But the worst thing that could have happened was that I just did a good workout. And then I
love
kept
that.
my life, So
we tend to catastrophize things and create these scenarios in our heads that halt us from taking action. And they also not only halt us from taking action, but they keep us stuck where we perhaps don't want to be. And so I love that you shared that example, and thank you for doing that. I don't know if I shared this with you when we met also back in 1996, which feels like forever ago, like dinosaur years. My kids have actually
don't do math.
I'm totally okay with that, actually. Sidebar, my kids actually asked if I grew up in the pioneer days.
No.
Oh, yeah. And I actually, as someone who rarely is speechless, I was actually speechless. I had no idea how to even answer that. Anyway, so back in 1996, I had finished university, wanted nothing to do with my biology degree except hang it on my wall. And I actually studied something called wellness and lifestyle management.
Okay.
And back in 1996, wellness was like voodoo, I found out. People thought, anyway, the practice of wellness and the education around it wasn't. And so I used to whisper the word wellness because people would take literally steps back when I said the word. And I don't know if they thought I was going to cast a spell on them.
Right.
So the reason I share that is just, it's another common piece that you and I share, but it's also just the evolution of this field. So can you share for the purpose of our listeners, that what does wellness actually mean to you? What is it? How would you sort of, I say define it, but how do you explain that?
Okay. Okay. Yes, that's a tough one, kind of. So, I mean, for me, wellness has a bunch of different components. I'm actually launching a VIP program, and what I've done is create content based on what I've defined as 3 pillars of wellness, which are body, mindset, and heart. And I think there's a lot within each of those. There's also wellness based on mental wellness, emotional wellness, intellectual wellness, like social. There's a bunch of different dimensions of wellness. So I think for me, it's the whole picture of life. And that's something that I've been in a sort of transition away from when I first started out, I was just doing personal training, like just fitness. That's all, a little bit of nutrition stuff, because obviously that's related to physical wellness. But over the years, I've really been evolving personally and as a coach to realize that people's wellness encompasses more than just the physical, and that all the different areas of your life actually affect your wellness. So for me, it's that, and I know this is a very overused word, but like the holistic approach to wellness, in that you're physically well, mentally well, and you're feeling fulfilled and happy in all areas of your life. I think that's kind of the ideal scenario. The people, yesterday was Monday, and for me, I love Mondays. I posted a post about how I love Mondays. It's a fresh start. And to me, it's really sad that there's people out there that dread Mondays because of what that means. And it likely means that they're going to a job that they don't like. And that just makes me really sad. And so something like that, to me, that person doesn't have a whole picture of wellness in their life, because there's one big area of their life that is lacking, or that they're very unhappy with. I don't know if
I love that, just, all of that commentary around it, and just yes and yes is what I have to say to that.
Okay.
And I also, I have mentioned this before on my show, and I'll mention it again to you right now, is I too see people walking around with this sort of on the treadmill of life, with dread and this drudgery, whether it's associated with Mondays or other parts of the day. And it it makes me sad. I almost could cry. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really neat how I think it's that kind of connection to your purpose that
Mm-hmm.
really helps you know that you're doing the right kind of work.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also love how, have you read the book, Michelle Obama's book,
Becoming?
Becoming?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
It's really good though.
So I am still reading it, but I've watched the Oprah interview
Okay.
on
Yeah.
YouTube. It's about an hour and 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And in all fairness, I'm actually enjoying the book less than I expected. I think because the interview was so freaking amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Well, for them, I mean, come on.
I mean, I know, I know. So your story kind of reminded me of her book. Her book is the concept of you were always in the process of becoming.
Yeah.
You know, you talked about starting your career, obviously, in the PM office. You talked about sort of just coming across this body pump poster to become an instructor and taking that leap and taking that risk. You know, about personal training, about moving into corporate wellness. And I love that it's a beautiful example of how we never arrive.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we arrive somewhere, but that's not the end. It's just the beginning of the next part of becoming.
That's right. Yeah.
And so I think your description was a really beautiful demonstration of what that is. And if anyone has not watched that YouTube video, I really encourage you to check that out, of Michelle Obama and Oprah. Talk about real and also inspiring. So yeah. So you do personal training still. One thing that I know about you that I've really found interesting is how you're pivoting based on what's happening in the market, which has to be scary too. The pivot that I'm referring to, because there might be a few pivots that you
Yeah.
So I'll help you out here in case you're thinking, shit, what's she talking about? I saw it on it's in your signature on your email.
Okay.
And it's about so you're taking stuff like the 15-minute is it a fitness challenge? Is it an online thing? Talk to us a little bit more about how you're trying to reach people beyond meeting them in the gym.
Okay. Yeah. So so I'm not quite exactly sure what did a few different subject lines, but so I had a 5-day Simplify Your Life challenge. Is that the one? Yeah. So that is a challenge that I have for people. And again, this is from the evolution of what I was saying about how I'm moving into a space where I want to be talking to people about more than just fitness. For me, fitness still is the primary driver and the primary thing that I talk about. But there's so much more than that, and I want to help people in different areas. So this Simplify Your Life challenge, I came up with it because I found common themes with people in terms of different aspects of their lives where they may be needing some tweaking. So one of them is related to clutter. I am a huge believer of that clutter actually causes stress, whether it's conscious or not. It just clutters up your brain and it makes you feel stressed and overwhelmed for a lot of people. I know personally for me, if I'm in a space that is quiet, so to speak, where there's not a lot of stuff going on, my mind just feels way more at ease. I think it's really interesting that the whole Marie Kondo thing has just exploded. And I'm not really surprised by it, to be honest, because I think it's, as a society, we've have this fixation with stuff and buying things. And so it's really neat that now things are kind of turning the other way. So I think
it's a really cool example as well, and I'm glad you brought that up. I have her book, and it's an example of how physical stuff. You know, a moment ago when you were talking about wellness and how it's an integrated, really it's about integration of all aspects of our being. And so this clutter stuff is a perfect example of how your physical space can clutter your mind and it clutter your energy, right? It creates this noise, extra noise and busyness that's not necessary.
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was gonna say it's really hard to explain, but for example, so I like to declutter. It's actually really fun for me. And
I think I need you to come to my house.
I love helping people move. Actually, I like packing boxes because it's like that game, what's it called?
Tetris?
Tetris, yeah. I'm so good at it. Like, I can pack a box, like, it's magical. But anyway, so friends of mine invited me over because they're having a baby soon and they needed some help with their bedroom because the baby's going to be in there. And so I spent a couple hours with them helping. And I can't even explain why, but there was this, and you didn't notice it when it was a feeling afterwards of lightness. And so what was interesting though is that I didn't notice a heavy feeling necessarily when I had walked in the room.
Right.
But what I noticed after, everything was cleaner and there was so much stuff, like a huge giant garbage bag full of clothes that was going to be donated. Other things moved out, reorganized, etc. You just walked in and it just
breathe,
lighter,
spaciousness,
so
like a feeling. Yeah.
I've never had that before. I think because I continuously declutter on a regular basis, so I don't have that in my house. But it was really, really interesting. So and I know there's scientific evidence about clutter and stress and anxiety. So that's why that's in there. I also talk about fitness and nutrition. And those are I'll get to that in a sec because there's some big stuff there. I also talk about relationships because I find a lot of people put up with too many negative relationships.
Yep.
And too many negative people in their life. And it brings you down. And there's that, of course, that cliche or that saying that talks about how you're the average of the 5 people around you. And I'm actually starting to really see how that is very true in my own life as I'm taking myself up a level and I'm being surrounded by people who are higher up than me, so to speak.
Yeah.
I'm seeing that I'm being elevated and I'm being pushed to be a better person. And so I'm trying to avoid negative people in my life as I normally do. But too many people, they just put up with it. Yeah. And whether it's family members or coworkers or just friends, part of the exercise that I have people do is to write down who are the people that lift them up, who are the people that don't, and to just
compare the lists,
yeah. Lessen your exposure to the people. If they're family and you can't do much about it, like that, you can still lessen, you can create boundaries for yourself. And I think people don't seem to realize that they have that power and that control. And
and not to derail if you're going through your list here, I apologize if I am, but it kind of goes back to your mindset, one of your 3 pillars.
Yeah.
In terms of, and I'm sure there's so much to talk about mindset, which is why it's a pillar of yours as opposed to just one tiny bullet, right? It's a pillar. Yeah. But it's about the mindset of choice, Mm-hmm. And so that, I think that when you kind of can wake up in your life and realize that every day you have choices, including what you're talking about here, including who you let into your life or how you let them in.
Yeah.
My mom doesn't really listen to my radio show, so I can say this about my mom. Mom, if you are listening right now, I'm really sorry. But when I got divorced and then met my new partner, wonderful partner who I'm with now, Jay, there was a lot of learning through my, ending a 25-year marriage and then taking a breath and reflecting and then, and finding someone new. One of the many things that I learned there was I needed to change what I shared with my mom because I wasn't getting the kind of support that I knew that I needed in the context of my new relationship. My mom had her own stuff that she was going through, in terms of no longer someone who had been in her life for 25 years, my ex-husband, she had her own stuff. And so that's okay. And I respect and acknowledge that. But it was hard. I had to step back and think, so what do I want this dance to be like now with my mom? How do I love her, love spending time with her. This was not an anti-mom stage in my life, but I had some choices that I had to make. It wasn't easy. And so I had to change that dance a little bit. And so I only share that example because it's a very real thing that happened to me. It was extremely difficult. And it's not just as easy, and I know you're not saying this, it's not as easy as saying, well, I'm just going to cut them out of my life. No. But there is another way, right? There are other alternatives.
Mm-hmm. Well, and sometimes it's about, again, it's the boundary thing. And I know there's some great books out there on boundaries, but I have a mom example too. So, you know, a couple of years back, my mom was going through something personally, and she kept calling me every day to talk about it during the day when I'm trying to get work done. And for a while, I would take her calls and I would talk to her, but then it would hold me off for the whole. And eventually I was like, I can't do this anymore. I need to get my work done. So I had to have, and I think a lot of it is people don't want to have tough conversations. That's a big component. But I had to have a tough conversation with my mom and say, I can't take your calls during the day. So here's where you can set boundaries, like it's a boundaries versus a cut somebody out, I think. Sometimes you do need to cut people out, but not always. Sometimes it's just boundaries. So for me, my boundary was, I will talk to you in the evenings only. I can't talk to you during the day. It takes up my work time and it throws me off for the rest of the day. If you want to talk, we can talk in the evenings. And she, to her credit, she actually commended me and said, thank you for you to take to set up those boundaries. Like she really appreciated that I could do that. And I think sometimes that's the type of thing that you need to do with people. And you know,
I agree.
If they're upset about it, they're going to be upset about it. Even for my wedding, like I remember having a conversation with my parents and being like, I'm going to probably do some things that you don't agree with. You can tell me once, and then I don't hear about it. So,
I love that.
Right?
I love that.
It comes back to that, like you said, the choice thing. And I think people don't realize how much choice they have and how proactive they can be in their own lives versus being reactive. And I'm sure, I know the work that you do with your women, I'm sure that you talk about that type of thing too.
Absolutely. It's really a foundational piece, isn't it? To creating a life that's aligned with who you are, how you want to show up, and the experience you want to have when you're here, and the difference you want to make, for sure.
Yeah.
So you've talked about 3 things: declutter, fitness and nutrition, relationships, and boundary setting. Was there more there before I took you on a tangent?
Yeah, the 5th one was commitments. And again, it's one of those things where I find people are so busy. They're so busy. So much going on in their lives. And they're so committed to things. And so one of the aspects of this challenge is for people to look at the commitments that they're part of and to decide what is still fueling them. What are they loving? What do they still want to be a part of? And what are they doing just because they've always done it, because they feel bad that the organization might not have anybody else, because there's all sorts of reasons why people would stay. And I encourage people to get rid of or slowly back away from the commitments that aren't serving them anymore. And again, I think it comes down to that aspect of being proactive, taking control, having a choice. And also there's a bit of ego at play there too. I think sometimes, maybe subconsciously, where people think like, oh my goodness, no one else can do this as good as I can. Or I'm the only one that can do this. There's not going to be anybody else. And you know what? I've seen it time and again in volunteer organizations where if somebody does step down, someone else will fill the role. You know, as sad as it is to say, like, you're not the only one that can do something.
I think it's kind of sad, but at the same time, there are roles in your life that no one can replace. If you're a mom or a partner, you know, those are roles that can't be replaced. Well, I guess they can, but not in that same way.
But in a different sense, right? And in a volunteer sense, you're always replaceable. And even if you're not, the organization will figure it out. And they will be okay. We don't always have to be the hero, right? Especially if it means, like, so many people that I talk to who are overworked and overcommitted put their own health on the back burner. And that's what gets me. It's like, at some point, you're not able to serve as best as you can because your own health is holding you back, you know? And for whatever reason, we have it especially women, so ingrained that everybody else has to come ahead of us, and that if not, it means we're selfish.
I know, I don't know how self-care became equitable with selfish. I talk about that too in my program with women, because it is a really big thing.
I know.
It's a really big thing, and it's this, it's very common as well, for that whole, like, being a martyr.
Absolutely.
Being the one to save others. And yet we don't sort of save ourselves. I say save in terms of looking after our own well-being.
Well, and then not to mention this whole, like, we could talk for a while, I'm sure, on the whole badge of busyness.
Yeah.
And how, I do think for some people, they just have a lot going on, and that's fair enough. But I think for a lot of people, it's this feeling that busyness equals success or something like that, like
Productivity or both or something.
Yeah, I know, there's just something about it where I was like, I don't want to be busy. I want to be less busy in my life and still make an impact and still be productive. And I think that it's possible. And that's a good segue actually into the fitness side of things, where I think for a lot of people, they think fitness has to be this big thing every day, huge production of getting to the gym for an hour. And it doesn't always have to be that way. It depends on your goals for sure. But a lot of fitness can be done in a shorter period of time. It can be done at home. You can do it outside. You can do it with your partner or with your children or with friends. There's so many different ways. And I think people get stuck in this mindset of it has to be hard and it has to be long and it has to be inconvenient. When it can actually be really simple. You can do workouts at home in your pajamas and still make your body feel better and still see results in your body. And that's one of the
attention. I guess again, it's really so much of this comes down to mindset. It really does. And then the action and commitment and things that follow.
Yeah.
So this actually brings me to what I had originally, although I liked that Simplify Your Life Challenge. I have a question about that, and then I want to move on to what I originally had wanted to
okay.
The Simplify Your Life Challenge. Those who want to find out more about that, how do they get that? Through your website?
Through my website, fithealthy365.com.
Fithealthy365.com? And if you didn't catch that, it's in the show notes. So when you listen to the podcast, or actually if you're listening up through Facebook, you can see it in the show notes right now. And so there was something else that you have, 15-minute workout club. And this is what you were just mentioning, triggered that I know that you have that as well. What triggered it was saying it doesn't have to be hard, long, and torturous. So tell us what this 15-minute workout club's all about.
Yeah, so basically it's exactly what it sounds like. 15-minute workouts done in your own home. There's a variety of different exercises with body weights, with small weights, with resistance bands, nothing where you need a lot of equipment. And again, because I want to help educate people that it can be simple, you can be effective in a short amount of time. And so they're all workout videos filmed starring me. And I do the workout along with you, so it's nice for people who want to follow along with somebody. And there's a monthly calendar. It guides you along through. You can choose, if you don't want to follow the calendar, you can choose your own things. And it's a great way if for people who are looking for something quick and easy to do at home. It's a great tool for sure.
Quick, easy to do at home, and no thinking involved, right? The thinking is done for you. And sometimes that can be the hard part for people. That is a barrier that they choose not to overcome. It's such a barrier. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And they get overwhelmed. Understandable. And so here is an easy way to get that. So I wanted to point that out too, because I thought that was really, really awesome. So I want to shift gears a little bit, if we may. So I want to go more into some of your sort of thinking experiences and philosophies. So through this journey of life that you've been on so far, and through all of what you have learned about yourself, what does success look like for you now? How do you define success?
Oh, well, that's a good one. I think it's definitely changed for
Mm.
me right now, because it might change in the future. I don't know. Um, for me right now, success is part personal and like internal and part external.
Yep.
So I would say for me, the internal part, success looks like for me being able to have the kind of lifestyle that I want to have. So for me, that means um, I love travel, and I want to be able to travel to different places, whether it's to see my family who don't live here where I live, or whether it's to go to Europe or other places. That's definitely a component. I do like this entrepreneurial schedule where I can, you and I can have this kind of chat in the middle of the day, and I'm not, this is part of my job, right?
Yeah. You didn't have to ask the boss, can I take this time off?
I can have a dentist appointment at 10 in the morning and it's not a problem. I can have a nap, but maybe I work till 7 or 8 o'clock at nighttime. Like my
Yeah.
schedule is flexible. I do enjoy that. So for me, yeah, the lifestyle thing is a big component in being able to support myself in that way. But also for me, success looks like results for my clients
Mm-hmm.
and making an impact. And I can't even tell you how happy I am when my clients get results,
Yeah.
and when they're the ones that are winning. It brings me so much joy. It's the best part of my day. Something seemingly as simple as, a client doing a push-up, for example. One of my clients lifting 100 pounds for a deadlift, which
Yeah.
was her most that she could ever do. When she first came to me, she couldn't even lift the bar, which weighs
Yeah.
45 pounds. Stuff like that. Even also not even just physical things, but mental, like mindset wins.
Mm-hmm.
When a client tells me that she had a bowl of M&Ms and didn't even finish the bowl, when I know that for her previously she would have devoured that bowl and had even more. Like
Yeah.
that's huge. And that, even though it's the mindset part, is the fact that I've talked to her a lot about food FOMO, fear of missing out,
Yeah.
and being able to allow yourself treats, but being controlled with it.
Yeah.
And it's a mindset thing. And so for her to have that win was outstanding and is so much fun. And then just other people too, it's hard, I'm sure in this business where you put a lot of yourself and a lot of your stuff out there, and there's not always a lot that comes back in terms of feedback. But when I see people in person, or sometimes when I get private messages from people saying, thank you so much, like keep posting your stuff, it really impacts me. That is just amazing to me. I mean, if I can help somebody live a better life, then I'm super happy.
And that sounds so generic, but it is so real and it's so true.
Mm-hmm. To me, I know it's not generic at all. It's like, truly, I am so
I
happy.
know. And I say that not to, I say that to emphasize that. So, because I feel the same way, and to be able to underscore it and underline it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are listening and you do not feel like that about what you do, it might be some time for reflection. Not huge jumps and leaps and changes, just time to sort of sit back and reflect, because maybe it's time for you to make a pivot in your own life. Because when you feel that joy, I got an email from a client about a week or two ago, and it made me cry. Because of the impact of the work that she's been doing while working with me. I mean, it just doesn't get better than that. Right? Yeah. It really, really doesn't. And so it is possible. It is possible to feel that kind of connection and impact. And I know that not everyone has the ability to make these shifts in their life quickly to be able to create this sense. You can do it through volunteering. There are always ways to get that kind of connection, to feel like you're making a difference in this world. That's one of the things that I talk quite a lot about, is actually having meaning in your life is one of the fundamental pillars within positive psychology. And we do search for meaning. And having an impact on the world. And so if it's not through your job, you can seek that out in other avenues. So it can be hard working for yourself. It can be wonderful, because I agree. For all the reasons that you shared, I echo those. And so how do you stay committed, focused, motivated, whatever word you want to use? How do you stay?
Yeah, well, let me first say, absolutely. Working for yourself, being an entrepreneur is very hard. I do not try and pretend that it's the easiest thing in the world and that everything is always great. Of course, I'm a very positive person, so
Yeah.
I try and dwell on the negative, but especially if people are talking to me privately, and sometimes I do post publicly about certain things. I usually try and pair it with a lesson, because that's just, I'm like lesson oriented, teacher oriented. I like to educate. But it's been tough for sure. I mean, I'll be honest. I actually actually pretty much a year ago, I almost quit my business.
Yeah.
And I was just burnt out. I was tired of the hustle. And it's because I had the wrong mindset, to be honest. And so I was making it a lot harder on myself than it needed to be. And I actually took some time off, so to speak, from all the extra work. So get this, you're going to love this, Louise. So I focused on my clients, which I always do, but I even focus more on my clients and giving them good experiences and getting results for them. And I only did anything else that I really wanted to do. If I didn't feel like doing it for whatever reason, I just didn't do it.
Yeah.
And the beauty part about it was that my business actually grew.
This is the thing. I'm not surprised. It makes me so happy that not only that you experienced that yourself, but that you chose to share that. Because to me, not to me, it is an example of also being brave.
Yeah.
It's an example of being brave for you in the moment to recognize it and pivot. And it's also brave for you to be admitting it when you're working in this field of wellness, but that's what makes you even more attractive to others, because they're like, oh shit, she's not a preacher, she's a teacher. And she's teaching this herself, and learning herself. And I love that you're a model for wellness, because you are a picture of wellness in many aspects. But you can also keep it really real. And so thank you for sharing that, making it harder for yourself. When we are grasping and grabbing and stretching, that's not the energy of or the vibe of having things come to you with ease. It's the opposite.
Yeah. And part of it too, I'll be very honest, part of it was, again, like I said, the mindset, but I had made a financial, like a revenue goal for myself. Yeah. And I became very fixated on the dollar side versus the people side.
Right.
And that was holding me back completely. And I realized that looking back, that was a really big thing, where I wasn't trying to help people. I was looking at people like dollar signs, which I don't do that anymore. Yeah. But that was a big thing. And the other big thing that was a big realization was that I need to follow my own advice and do things for my own self and practice my own self-care. I really give a lot of myself and a lot of my time to others. And I wasn't, especially during that time period, I was not doing things to fuel my own self. And that was all that together was what caused this burnout. So I had to start practicing self-care and making that a priority and making time for that. And honestly, it's still I say practice, and it's kind of like, I like that word that they use in yoga about practice, because a lot of the things that we do in life are practices. It's like we talked about how you're on a journey and you never fully arrive, because once you arrive, there's still more to go. Yeah. And it's the same thing here, where like I still have to make an effort to do things for myself. It's not a default for me. Yeah. And so I just always have to keep that in mind, because I don't want to go through another burnout again.
No, I can imagine.
And I can't help people my best when I am not feeling my best. So, and but it's a constant reminder, like just to tell the viewers and the listeners that, like, again, I'm just the same as everybody else. And so I understand that many people have this struggle, but that you have to just make it something that you really want to do. And that's a priority. And then you just constantly have to be even repeating these mantras or whatever to yourself, where it's like, I can't be my best unless I feel my best. Right. So, but anyway, yeah, so mindset was a big part of it. But yeah, it was really neat to see that once I sort of like let go. And again, what was interesting was that I let go of the things that didn't make me happy or that I just didn't want to do. And the stuff that I was doing was the right things. I was also more strategic with my time because I was actually quite fatigued. I was taking naps every day. And so I was working less hours, but I was still accomplishing things because I was being more strategic with my time and not just doing like busy work or things that were not effective or productive.
Kind of goes back to something you were mentioning a while ago, and you're right, the whole show could have been on this, the badge of busyness. Just because you're busy doesn't mean you're either being effective, productive, adding value to yourself or to others. I know when I get into a state of overwhelm, and this is only something I've been doing for the last 4 months, despite the fact that I've been, coaching for years. So speaking to this whole concept of continuing to grow, develop yourself as an individual, I go and meditate. And that's not necessarily right for everyone. And when the weather is nice, because here in Ottawa, we still have a ton of snow on the ground. My go-to in the summer would be to go for a walk in the woods, which is pretty much my backyard.
Lovely.
That would be my default, because I totally unwind and unload. I can feel my cup filling. I can see it filling when I'm in the woods, but that's not possible right now in a way that fills me up. I enjoy it in the snow, but different. So anyway, so my point is I go meditate for 10 minutes, but I have to force myself to, because I'm like, there's this conversation in my head, but you've got all this to do. But what will happen is if I take that 10 minutes and actually bring my all those stress hormones and get things more balanced internally in my heart, my mind, and my body, I'll get way more done. And so that's a practice I do every day.
Good. That's so funny you mentioned that, because just even before you said meditation, I was like, okay, the next thing I want to say is meditation. It's so funny. But I started recently meditating as well. And I'll actually share kind of how this came about, because there's some really neat lessons in this. So basically, I've been saying for like months that I want to meditate. Yeah. I even have a little, so I organize my iPad apps.
Of course you do.
My iPhone apps, because obviously. I created a little folder that's called Morning Routine. It's still called that, which it needs to change, but anyway. And in it was the Calm app that I use. And I put that in there, and I put a couple other things in there that I wanted to do in the mornings. And then, of course, I didn't do anything with it. My mornings at that time period, so let's say like 6 months ago, they were very scattered. I, at that time, wasn't training clients in the morning. So I did have time, but I wasn't getting up at the same time every day. I would go on FaceTime with my sister and her babies at like scattered times. Anyway, it never happened, and it never worked. And one of the things that I teach with my clients and others is that you have to live in your reality. And what I mean by that is that you have to take a look at what is actually going on in your life, and are things working? So in this case, doing meditations in the morning wasn't working at all. It wasn't happening. As much as I could say, I really want to do this, it wasn't happening. So I had to figure out a way to make it happen. And what I realized was that, or the thing that I came to was that in the afternoons around 2:00 is like my lowest energy moment of the day.
Right.
So I'm very productive in the mornings. After lunch, by 2:00, I'm like ready for a nap. And so I thought, oh, that might be a really good time to do my meditation. So I'm like, great, I'm going to do that. So then for a week, I didn't do it, even though I said I was going to do it. And I'll tell you the reason why. And this is another thing that I teach people, is that because it wasn't in my calendar. So I had said that.
All right, let's hear this. Wrap it up in 1 minute. What's this lesson?
Oh, no!
I know! You gotta wrap it. What's this lesson? I'm dying to hear it.
Okay, so basically, long story short is I didn't put it in my calendar. And so it didn't happen. I've put it in my calendar now, and I've pretty much done it every single day since because it's in my calendar.
And I think that's an awesome, awesome lesson. I love the story behind it, the realness of it, and then how you said you bring it, that you have to live in your reality. So thank you not only for that awesome and an example to this amazing hour. Thank you.
How are we done already?
I know. I know, right? I told you I would be good to you and lead you through this. I'm so happy to share this hour with you. Thank you so much, Lydia, for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. This is super fun.
Absolutely.
Because there's so much more that I want to say.
We will do that. And of course, I want to thank you, my loyal listeners and followers, and remind you that information about my show and my guests can be found out at louiseatreed.com. Lots of love and a big shout out to my producer, Cameron Steele at Contact Talk Radio. I'd like to encourage you, as I always do, to be brave, be bold, and be happy. And until next Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'm Louise H. Reed, wishing you all an amazing day. Goodbye, friends.
Okay, hang on.